Thank you so much. It's really interesting talking to both of you today. We have another question from our students today. They want to know if they want to become an astronaut, what subjects should they be studying in school besides Russian or other languages?
Let's see. Other subjects that students should study to become an astronaut. So of course, I personally have gotten here through, not the usual routing in the sense of as a private spacefarer. I've arranged to fly, so to speak, in space, but I still think it's been very essential that I've had a very strong and science and math background that has allowed me to understand the spacecraft operations quickly and participate very fully. However, Soyeon, again, had to be selected through what I'll call a more traditional process in order to be selected as Korea's first astronaut. So again, I'll pass over to Soyeon and see if she has any advice for kids from an educational background as to what kind of classes they should take to become an astronaut.
Wow. Actually, the very first time I didn't know that I can pick as the first Korean astronaut, and then just try to do that. And then I think most kids just to try to do their best in any place, not just in special thing, and in anything that they are interested in, and then it helps. And then, in fact, I didn't prepare for being an astronaut. I just to do my best in any place.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, that's interesting that astronauts now cover a wide variety of fields. I mean, if you know that the first group of Apollo or even Gemini astronauts were selected because they were test pilots, not because they had any particular science background. And my father, who flew first on Skylab and then on the space shuttle, was amongst the first group of astronauts that were selected for their science background. And if you look at astronauts today, there's not only test pilots and not only scientists, but they've also flown journalists and educators and private citizens such as myself. But I think a strong educational background is essential for all of the people who have flown. They all have been reasonably studious, you might say.
Hello. We have one more question, and I was thinking maybe we would try to go to Dan, who I think is still with us. I believe he logged off and logged back on. So we are very interested in this new piece of software that we'll be flying with Richard called Windows on Earth, and it will be used to help Richard and other astronauts in the future plan for Earth photography. And Dan, if you can hear me and you'd like to say a few words before we close today about the Windows on Earth software, that would be great.
Sure, Rita. Well, as you may have followed, that there has been a difficulty for astronauts looking out the window to know what they're looking at. And so if we, so this new software will provide a new way for him to know what he's looking at. As you mentioned, right by the window he will have a computer that's displaying the software that shows the target, the view out the window, exactly the same on the computer as in the actual window, with targets that the students have selected marked. And as they come into view, Richard will be able to say, oh, look at that, there's Mount Everest. A student wants a picture of Mount Everest, click, there's a picture of it. I believe now you're seeing the Nile River Delta as an example of the view out on this computer screen, showing a red circle around the green part of the Nile River Delta. And so as Richard flies over that, he'll know to point his camera at it. In addition, you students and teachers will be able to use the same software on the ground. You will get a simulated view of exactly the same thing that Richard sees, including passing over from day to night. That was one of the questions that you asked. The night side will be dark, the day side will be light. It takes 90 minutes to go around the world, and you'll see that view exactly the same, calculated as if you were on the International Space Station. You'll see that, and you'll also see the targets that you selected and know exactly the moment that Richard takes the pictures. Finally, once Richard is down on the ground, he'll integrate those pictures into the software so that you will be able to see the same pictures that he took and support your investigations for the types of things that you're looking for in your selection of targets. The software is called Windows on Earth, and it was originally funded by a grant from the National Science Foundation. Now we're adapting it for use in this particular program. And back to you, Rita.
But let's look into the future. What cities or regions of the Earth might be interesting to look at now and keep your eye on over the next generation? So some important questions could include if nothing changes, if things just keep on the way they are over the next 35 years, what might you see? And if that's not a good thing, how might we alter those effects? And thinking about what Richard was saying, keep a positive view on this. What kinds of positive things might you see over the next 35 years? Here are some resources. There is a NASA Archive of Earth Photography. That's at eol.jsc.nasa.gov, and you can do a search for the skyline images or any other specific area you're interested in looking at. There is the winearth.terc.edu, the Windows on Earth site we were just talking about with Dan, and a PC is required for that. There's EarthCam, which is a great student project for another way for students to take photographs from the International Space Station. And there's the Earth Observatory, .nasa.gov, which shows you how scientists use these images to learn about Earth. And of course, I'm sure many of you are familiar with Google Earth, which is a really wonderful tool. So we're going to just close by going back to Richard from Star City and thanking them for joining us today.
Thanks, Rita. Appreciate it. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to you and the Challenger Center, as well as all of our guests, including my special guest, Soyeon here, for suffering through our early technical difficulties. But I must also say here from Star City that training is going well. I'm really looking forward, of course, to the flight in October, but also looking forward to hearing from you, all the students, about what targets we might select to put into Windows on Earth to really be to showcase how the Earth might change 35 years from now. So please do go online and contribute to our database. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you, Rita.
Thanks, Richard and Soyeon, for joining us from Star City, Russia. This is Rita Carl, Director of Education at Challenger Center for Space Science Education, signing off. Thank you and have a nice day.